So one of the big things that we need to review is algebra and equations, and making sure that you understand the property of equations and the idea of being able to solve for unknowns. So one of the properties of equations is balance. So it's important to be able to draw a balance. So here I'm going to show my variable b as, in this case, I'm going to show like an algebra tile. Okay, we're going to call that B, and I'll maybe label that B. Okay, so there's my algebra tile. I'm going to use a couple circles here for the 2. So negative B, we're going to have it pulling on the balance. Okay, so I'm going to draw this as a balloon here, and we'll call that negative B, negative B. Okay, and then we've got these 8 things that we are weighing the balance down. Okay, so we're not going to physically do the balance of the balloons and everything all the time, but understand that it is acting opposite of the B on that balance. So to show this solution to this, what we can do is we can solve this, okay, by showing our steps. We're going to get rid of the B's, so we're going to balance off those 2 B's with a couple boxes there, or algebra tiles. And what we do to one side has to be done to the other side. Okay, we have to make sure that we balance equations. And I want to get all the ones to the other side, so I'm going to take away a couple ones here, take away a couple ones here, get rid of those, get rid of those. So what ends up happening is we end up with 3b on this side, and we get 6 ones on this side, and we can group those 3b's by dividing both sides. Okay, so it's good you don't need to use the balance to actually solve the equation, but it's important to understand how the balance works. There is some physical properties that translate to algebraic properties. Okay, so for this one here, we have 2 B's, so I'm going to draw these 2 B's in this manner. Okay, so we're going to have a couple little balloons here, showing that we're pulling, these are pulling in the opposite direction. We're going to have some kind of bigger balloons here that show us our negative B's. Okay, and normally we just use negative algebra tiles, which would be much easier. But again, I just want to give you the impression that these are acting physically on the balance and having a different physical effect on the balance. And these physical properties show up as algebraic properties as well. Okay, so there's our balance. We can use this, then we can use opposites to solve the equations. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Okay, I'm going to add 3 B's to both sides. Okay, 0 pair, 0 pair. So we're up to 5 B's is balancing 15. And then we can solve this equation by dividing both sides by 5. Okay, so a big part of this is being organized and keeping track of all the different terms. So here we can just solve these by using our opposites. Okay, and so in this case here, I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to maybe put the x's on the other side. So I'm going to take away x's from the left side and the right side. I'm going to take away the 1's from the left side and right side. Here I end up with -6, and that's going to give us 3 x's. Divide by 3, I end up with x equals -2. Again, make sure you show steps, make sure you're keeping track of all your terms. Okay, the positives and negatives are really important. It's important to work vertically. So here I'm going to add 3x to both sides. I'm going to take away 11 from both sides. I end up with -15 equals 5x. Again, divide both sides by 5. and I get a solution x equals -3. So there's only one rule for equations, and that's balance. So in this case here, I notice that everything is divisible by 11. So what I'm going to do actually is simplify this equation by dividing everything by 11. And by doing that, I end up with having a simplified form of the same equation. And this is much easier to deal with when you have smaller terms. So again, I'm going to move the x's to one side. I'm going to add, and again, the only rule is balance. You can do whatever you want to an equation as long as it's balanced. So 5x is equal to 25, and solving this, I get x equals 5. Okay, and then here we could divide everything by 2, but that's not divisible by 2 here. So what is generally easier is to keep track of your terms by distributing out the brackets. And when possible, we want to try to combine like terms. Okay, so here we're going to end up with 2x plus 18. Okay, I'm going to take away an x from both sides. I'm going to take away the 18s from both sides. Okay, so we end up with 1x on this side and -16 on this side, okay, which gives us our solution. Okay, so in the only rule there is in equations is you have to keep it balanced. Okay, so that's the only rule. Okay, now we want to solve for x. So sometimes we can do things that keep it balanced, which doesn't help us out. So we also want to be mindful of we're trying to solve for x. Okay, but you want to keep it balanced. So some other people say that another way you can say this is what you do to one side, what you do to left side, you must do to right side. Okay. Now that's the only rule. Now some steps that you could follow are you want to try to get rid of brackets. So remove brackets is an easy way to keep track of terms, to account for your terms. Okay. It's always good to combine like terms. Okay, and it's often easier to, you want to get x's on one side and numbers on the other side. Okay, so these are some steps. Now you don't have to do these steps, again, because there's only one rule, and that is keep it balanced.